Welcome back, everybody, to the Buffalo Bulls Dynasty. We are going through the Season 5 offseason today. I'll be covering everything that happened in the 3-hour offseason live stream, along with the things I did afterwards that will prepare us for Year 5. We'll break down all the new prospects, including 4-star quarterback David Ogbonna, 4-star running back D'Angelo Meyer, and talk about the players taking on new roles for the Season 5 team. We are coming off a great season in the series that saw Buffalo go 9-5, but lose the conference title and their bowl game. So there's a very empty feeling at the end of this season, not seeing it end the way we wanted to after a 9-3 start. But what's great in this case is that so many of the players that made that season great are going to be returning. We lose Lamar Sperling, our best running back. We do lose some starters on defense, but we're returning our quarterback, best playmaker, 4 offensive line starters, and a lot of our defense because it was such a young unit, and now they have more experience under their belt. Some of our best players on that side of the football, Shamar Riser-Presley, who was our sack leader, and Penei Fuimauno, our best run defender, those players were set to come back unless they declared to the NFL draft early. So as we get into the offseason, we add on to our recruiting class with 3-star tackle Jared Wade. Always important to have O-line depth. And we hire a defensive coordinator in Dave Grubb. Now, I was not able to see talents before actually offering. I could only see basically that spider graph showing where the points were. He ends up helping more of our offense than defense, actually. Does give a boost to our defensive line through the tactician tree, but he does help out quarterback and some of the offensive players. We then add Quincy Barmore at right guard to the class, giving us some more points freed up going into off-season recruiting. And at this point, we do see Buffalo has now become a 2-star program. And we also see LSU are the champions for college football this year. We had a good look at them early in the year last season when they blew us out. But let's move on to the players leaving stage, and this year it's very simple. Nobody transfers away. Nobody declares early. It's only the graduating seniors, and one of them would be projected to go in the NFL draft, and that is running back Lamar Sperling, who was expected to be a day 2 selection. And he would get taken in the 2nd round, and that will help out our pro potential pitch in recruiting in the future. And we're now at the point, by the way, heading into our 5th year, that we're seeing a lot of the freshmen when the game came out graduating, going to the draft. So rosters are almost completely different at this stage. Now we're into off-season recruiting and the transfer portal. I first wanted to see if we could address secondary. That was a big weakness. We had a bunch of first-year starters. We didn't have great athleticism, and it showed. We had some cornerback targets. In trying to replace Lamar Sperling, I felt good about who we already had, but there wasn't much we could end up doing in the transfer portal anyway. We then go back to defensive end, as we've done consistently in this series, and I'm targeting the best options as we've had really good success using the portal to bring in defensive ends. So we get to scouting the corners then, specifically wanting players that can step in, start with better athleticism than the players that we have. So I want acceleration and speed combos, hopefully in the 90s. That obviously wasn't coming easily here, finding a lot of 88 and 89 speed players. It was Jeremy Caruthers that was the first I was really interested in. 90 speed, that would be better than almost everybody that we have on our roster. And then Larry Pan is a freshman looking to transfer, so a player who could still develop for a while. He has a really good skill set already with that slot archetype. We give him an offer. And then with our defensive end targets, we have Obinna Onwuka, who can rush the passer with finesse. Gabe Madu is the run stopper archetype, a skill set that has worked really well for us, going back to players like Jake Jackson a couple years ago in the series. Wesley Williams had the ability to stop the run as well. I also had thrown on a few more players I had not yet scouted, some last-minute options. Brian Dragocevic is an athlete I wanted to target. And then I had a handful of other players that were left over, did not make decisions during the actual college season. We had a pretty good board getting put together at this stage, and it wasn't until I went back to the transfer portal page again that I saw there was actually a 4-star transfer interested in Buffalo, and I nearly missed it entirely. JV Waters is a speed rusher, a junior going into his senior season, and we add him to the board. I'm not going to talk about all the point distribution, but basically I maxed out most players. I hard sold when it was time to, and here's what ultimately happened. JV Waters, the 4-star defensive end, does indeed transfer to Buffalo, giving us some pass rush depth. We then bring in a 3-star safety in Spencer Jordan, and Jeremy Caruthers also transfers, giving us a new starting option. Obinna Onwuka transfers to Buffalo. We basically got all the players I was trying to target, including Brian Dragocevic, who we did not scout until that off-season stage. On National Signing Day, we see all my targets here at the top had picked Buffalo. We end up with the number 32 ranked recruiting class, which is up from 38 the season before. It's gotten better every season. 23 players replacing 21 outgoing seniors, and 4 4-star players. I brought in a lot of athletes this year, and especially being in the MAC. That's one of my focuses, is just trying to overwhelm these teams with athleticism they can't match. And I'm looking for players of all different archetypes that can fill a variety of spots. They're some of the most intriguing players. Braden Augustine is going to be a defensive tackle. We are then going to go to 4-star athlete Larry Wheeler. He was expected to be a power rusher, and he will be an edge rusher for us. 74 overall is a great starting point. Joshua Bloom was an interesting one because he was listed as a quarterback, but I was always hoping he'd have more position flexibility. He does have pretty good receiver ratings as well and running back ratings. He definitely would be an intriguing quarterback, but because we had brought in a 4-star quarterback in this class, I was hoping I could find a different position for him if David Ogbonna was indeed a great future starter caliber prospect. It turns out Ogbonna has 75 overall, he has 82 speed, 91 acceleration with 91 throw power, already has 86 short accuracy with 81 medium and 77 deep. Looking at his ratings, I think it's easy to project him with all those abilities, the impact dev. He should be a future starting quarterback. And in that case, I would rather find a different position for Joshua Bloom to make an impact at. And running back is his best overall position, and we could use another receiving back after losing Lamar Sperling. Here is Carlos Harms, a 64 overall athlete who could be a low 70s overall pass rusher. And usually I follow their best position. He has 78 finesse moves, but very low tackling, play recognition. Even though his overall is lower, I look at the 84 strength, the 84 carrying. I'm okay with him just being a situational power back. We need depth at that role anyway. Orlando Rochelle, 6'5", 203 pounds with 93 speed. And his positions are better on defense than offense. But what we're seeing with these athletes is they tend to have decent coverage ratings, but awful press coverage. And that again is the case here. I don't like the receiver ratings enough, so I'm looking more at defense. 6'5" with speed, I'd like to play him outside at corner, but I'm not going to if I don't get good press coverage, and 29 isn't even bad. Like, it's unplayable at that position. So instead, I think we have a really intriguing athlete to develop as a starting safety. Next up, Sean Blade, a 6'5", 212-pound athlete. He ends up with a little bit better offensive emphasis. 75 short route running, good spec catch. He'll go to wide receiver. we have Isaac Truman. Scouting linebackers has been a lot of fun in this game. Truman is an athlete with really good speed, really good tackling, and also has mid-70s zone coverage. So he will be listed as a linebacker and a likely future starter. Brian Dragosevich. We were looking at possibly him being a tight end. His best positions are linebacker, fullback, defensive tackle. There's a big tie there. 6'2", 237, has 85 speed, 81 strength. If we look at the receiving ratings, the route running's not great if he's to be a tight end. Not a great player in coverage, but does have good pursuit. He's going to be listed at linebacker. I think he could have a versatile role. That takes care of the athletes, but I did want to break down D'Angelo Meyer a little bit. He is the 4-star running back that we've added this year, and he brings in 91 speed, 92 acceleration, which is comparable to Lamar Sperling. Now, I think he has more strength and better upside there as a power runner. Already 76 broken tackle. His big weakness, though, is he's not a good pass catcher at all. Route running's low, catching only a 58. He might catch the occasional dump off, but not be as much of a pass game weapon. Let's go to training results now, where we see this team has 2 90-plus overall rated offensive linemen. We have some highly rated pass rushers and even more O-linemen in the mid to high 80s. The offensive line has been completely reshaped the last couple years. John Burns takes quite a leap after I think being our weakest starter and could easily be a very good one now as a sophomore. Quarterback E.J. Colson is up to an 80, but the big riser here was Ray Elway, who is pushing that same overall with a stronger arm, better short accuracy. But we will be sticking with E.J. Colson this year. It's just gotten very close between those two, and if we did see Colson go down with injury, Ray Elway would step in. And running backs, Soma Ojinaka becomes the second highest rated running back over D'Angelo Meyer, but I would still expect a smaller role for him. He's a better pass catcher, but I don't think he's nearly as dynamic with the ball in his hands. At wide receiver, the player I was hoping would take a big leap ultimately did. Enrique Trejo was a player I brought in with his deep threat skill set, and now he's put more pieces together here. He has some short route running in the mid-80s. He can get off the line really well, and he will be the man replacing Dallas Roche in the slot. I also think we have to get him outside a little bit with that deep speed to see if he can stress defenses the way Staley does. Very little changes at the tight end position. Kevin Kajust has basically maxed out as a low 80s player. Along the offensive line, we're going to have 5 starters, all mid 80s or better. And the depth is even good at a variety of these spots, so we can withstand an injury and still feel very good about this being a strength. I'm really hoping somebody takes a big leap at defensive end this year on the field. Ratings-wise, we see Antoine Gatto up to an 82. Jakari Bennett is up to an 88. We need someone beyond Shamar Riser-Presley to be a consistent pass-rushing presence, and there are a lot of options. Every year, I'm giving multiple players a chance. We'll see who ultimately earns the most playing time. At defensive tackle, we're counting on some new players to step up. That includes Joel Treggs and Troy Hodell, 2 redshirt freshmen, now mid to high 70s rated. Treggs is a better pass rusher, a more situational player, whereas Hodell has more 3-down value. At linebacker, Leon Edmond, the redshirt freshman, is going to step in to be an immediate starter with 97 tackling, 88 zone coverage, and this is a redshirt freshman who could absolutely become a star. In the secondary, nobody takes a massive leap, and nobody develops their speed in any meaningful way. Jeremy Caruthers is going to be asked to step in, even as a 79, and I want to see him be our number 1 corner. I think the athleticism can make a difference. He has better top speed, but will the coverage ability be up to par? In the secondary, Lampman returns and Xavier Leonard replaces C.J. Turner. Leonard is an 80 overall. We also have a new kicker this season. Morgan Grassmanis is going to step in for Nick Reed. But overall, this team has developed extremely well. I feel this is, in many ways, a leveled up version of last year's team, and that sounds great to me. We are going to cut one player from the roster. It is kicker Andrew Phillips, who was not projected to play, with Grassmanis being the new kicker. Why don't we talk about some of the player rating caps now for our freshmen? David Ogbonna does have a bit of a cap on his accuracy. That's a little annoying, but I still think he'll have no issue being a mid-80s rated starter. With all these abilities, I think he has the tools to be a great quarterback and a more long-term option for us. Running back D'Angelo Meyer is a 4-star playmaker who is great with the ball in his hands. He can make you miss with spins and jukes, has great speed, acceleration. Again, the pass catching is his weakness. That's where Joshua Bloom excels. And I like that role on the team, and that's great news for Bloom. Here is a 3-star gem pass rusher George Robbins. The worst cap is on his most crucial rating, but everything else has a pretty high ceiling. So we'll see where his finesse moves ends up and if it's enough. Then 4-star Larry Wheeler. Really wanted to see good caps here, and I think they're all right. Not too restrictive with the power rushing. Also like that IQ doesn't have a bad cap at all. Braden Augustine only begins as a 68, has a pretty good ceiling as a pass rusher. Isaac Truman is a linebacker whose caps might limit his ceiling. This was disappointing to see. Brian Dragosevich, listed at linebacker, run stopping, has a high ceiling. Coverage probably never going to be very good for him. That's okay. Devontae Carrion. Now we go to our secondary. I brought in some of the most athletic cornerbacks I could. The caps here on Carrion are not ideal. While we have Byron Gammon, who's not nearly as fast. He's definitely not slow, but his caps are far more favorable if he's to become a high-end starter. Safety Spencer Jordan has a lot of speed, very above average at safety. The caps, not great, but I think he can still become a starter. While Orlando Rochelle doesn't have the worst caps for coverage or run support, but the IQ cap is rather inconvenient. It was then time to get on to the preseason and start our new year of scouting. And what I like to do every season is see what do the 5-stars think of us and what are the 4s. Well, there are a lot of 4-star players that have Buffalo already in their top 5. And that's going to shape our early season board. I have to see how many of these 4-stars we could potentially bring in. And that's how I approach the early window. I know we're probably not going to bring in too many 5 or 4-star players, but I definitely won't if I don't try. And we got 3 last year by trying. So we're going to be replacing 17 players on the team this season. Again, I would like to keep the class between 15 and 20 players then in that case. You can see here we also have 41 freshmen right now. We're on to week 0, the week of our first game, so we can take a look at the first bit of recruiting progress. Basically, the 5-star players are still not at all interested in Buffalo, which is about what you would expect. But if you take a look at the 4-star players, we are rising up so many of those boards into first place, which is a really good spot for us to be early in the season. Now, in the stream, I did do a little bit of practice to take a look at D'Angelo Meyer and test out some things with our cornerbacks. And right now, I can say D'Angelo Meyer does feel like a good replacement for Lamar Sperling. Now, he's not going to be able to handle everything Sperling did, especially as a receiver, but he feels very quick and explosive in and out of his cuts. He doesn't have a ton of power on paper, but it seemed like he was falling forward, could break some tackles, and those jukes were really nasty. I then had to see Jeremy Caruthers at that number 1 cornerback spot. Could he handle the downfield throws? We are testing him here with Enrique Trejo, who has 95 speed. I'm not sure how many balls I threw in this practice in that direction, but when he was in off coverage, Trejo never caught a single one. Jeremy Caruthers will be an immediate starter for this defense this season. He did get playing time last year with Iowa State, intercepting 1 pass and making 55 tackles with 5 deflections. Everything else in this video comes after the stream was over. And this is where I'm setting up our red shirts, and that will include quarterback David Ogbonna and most of the freshmen. D'Angelo Meyer, however, I do plan on playing as a true freshman, just like Leon Dingle, who is now a senior and will be one of our primary running backs. One thing I didn't realize last year is that right guard Dorian Henry was actually getting a few snaps a week, and I didn't know it. I couldn't redshirt him then in that case, but I'm planning on doing so this year. He would be a backup anyway, so hopefully we get that extra year of eligibility. I'm actually setting the red shirts at the beginning, whereas I haven't now for a couple years, but sometimes that leads to some issues. You can also have issues when you do the red shirting early if players are getting into games like with mass subs and you're not aware of who's on the field. So it's something you have to pay attention to, but know that anytime you redshirt a player, it resets your depth chart. So if you're going to do it right away before you ever even think about getting your week 1 depth chart set. Don't expect to see too many true freshmen play meaningful snaps this season. D'Angelo Meyer is the one player who should have a big role right off the bat. Otherwise, our spots are filled with pretty solid players in most cases. But let's talk about the players who are taking on new roles this season, beginning with Leon Dingle. He was the second running back a year ago, handled about a third of the carries. This year, he's going to be our number 1 running back. I think you could compare him to a running back like James Conner. He can help out in the passing game. He's a good between the tackles runner. He can block. He's actually our best pass blocker in that department. D'Angelo Meyer is going to be the change-up, and maybe he ends up getting a lot more carries because of the efficiency. That's something I will be targeting, as Sperling was more efficient than Dingle last year especially. Enrique Trejo is going to be a starter in the slot, but should also play a lot on the outside where his speed and release are very dangerous. Antoine Berryman is going to be a new starter at tackle, but I'm looking to make a change at the start of this year. We have lost Henry Tabansi, who graduated from last year's team, and I'd rather put the more experienced Nate Fanene on the left side. Protect the blind side of the quarterback that way, and we're going to play Berryman then as the right tackle and see if that switch works out for us. On defense, it's hard to say who that true number 2 edge is going to be, but JV Waters will get a lot of playing time early to see if he can be the answer. He's the new 4-star transfer that comes in. And then we have Troy Hodell, who will be the second defensive tackle starter. He replaces David Anderson and is a more well-rounded player than defensive tackle Joel Treggs. Treggs will absolutely play, but his run stopping is so low it will reduce his snaps. He only has a 61 block shed with an 89 finesse move. So he's a really intriguing player to keep an eye on this year, both the good and the bad. Linebacker Leon Edmond is the player I think has a chance to break out as this team's new superstar on defense. The tackling, speed, and cover combination is so good for a redshirt freshman. He's got, to develop his awareness and everything still, but the sky is the limit. And then Matteo Buffelli, who I think was playing out of position last year as our number 1 corner, is going to start this year as the slot. He's so much better covering those short routes, as we saw at the end of last year. Xavier Leonard is the new starting strong safety. I'm not sure anything stands out in a major way with his skill set, and we'll see if he's able to make a good impact because he's replacing a really good player in CJ Turner. And finally, the new kicker is Morgan Grass-Manis with 86 kick power and 79 accuracy. He replaces Nick Reed, who won the Lou Groza Award a year ago. The accuracy is going to be a work in progress. That meter is going to be moving faster. As far as leg strength goes, I think he can handle anything inside of 50, depending on the wind. Here is a kick where he's trying one from 54 yards, and this is obviously indoors, and the kick comes up well short. I'd have to say his maximum range is about 52 yards, and that's with the wind not being a factor. Here's what our recruiting board is going to look like as the season gets underway. Obviously, if a 4-star player has Buffalo as their top school, we are going to be sending the house. But there are so many 4-stars that have us in first place, it's taking up the vast majority of our points. Therefore, I don't see us actually targeting any 5-star players this season. We have 450 points here. It's up because we're now a 2-star team, and that's great. But we don't have enough to target the 4s and then explore 5-star players as well without risking losing some of these 4-star players. So we've brought in 5 4-stars the last 2 seasons. We will see what's possible this year. There are also some 3-stars on our board, and a few of them I've put a handful of points into this first stage. But I'll be waiting on many of these 3-star prospects as the battles for 5 and 4-star players just develop faster early in the season. It's also convenient that we're only graduating 17 players, so I don't have to worry about bringing in a massive class, and I can focus more on less players right off the bat, knowing I can come around to 3-star players more so at mid-season to get some of those battles off the ground. But there are really good players like Dalton Doss I do want to bring in, but I only have so many points to spread around right now. Tight end Morgan Scarborough, I'm only putting 35 points into right now, and that's just to have enough points to offer some scholarships to some 3-star players and sprinkle a few points on players lower on the board. It'll be fun to see how that all develops for us. It could be a big season in recruiting as Buffalo has become a 2-star program and looks like one of the best in the MAC again. Here is the schedule that is going to see us take on James Madison, Ohio State, and then Old Dominion to kick the season off before we get to our MAC schedule. We are also going to take a quick break from conference play to face Temple once again. I think James Madison will be a really good battle in week 1. It looks very even on paper. Ohio State is probably going to be an extremely difficult game. We took on the champions last year. We'll see if we have a better chance against the Buckeyes. And then Old Dominion, I just wanted to get the rematch. Now, the team does look a little bit different for them as the Monarchs have lost their quarterback, their star receiver who got deep on us in that previous game. So it will be a little bit different Monarchs team, but we're looking to avenge that bowl game defeat. Now let's talk about the goals for this year, coming off the 9-win campaign and the MAC championship loss. The goal is obviously to win the MAC this season. I would also like to see double-digit victories, 2 of the milestones we missed on a year ago. Head coach Adam Kane has a 23-28 record. I would like for him to have a winning record by the end of this year. E.J. Colson passed for 28 touchdowns last year. The Buffalo single-season record is 29. I want 30 passing touchdowns from Colson here in his senior campaign. Those are the measurable goals I have in mind. I'd also like to see our defense be better. I'm not going to put a number on it, but I certainly don't want to have the worst run defense in the MAC. I don't want to be giving up nearly as many points as we did. I want to see us take away the ball a lot more as well. We did not produce many turnovers a year ago. We had a -1 turnover differential. I would like to have a positive one, which doesn't happen often in these series, but the turnovers were mostly cleaned up last season. They didn't get out of hand. I'd like for us to have the kind of year that can also give Buffalo a 3-star rating going into the future. I am excited about this upcoming season. Buffalo really turned a corner a year ago, and now it's time to show that we are here to stay, and that this team can be even better. So thank you all for watching today's video. The action in Season 5 kicks off this week. Multiple episodes coming your way as Year 5 begins. If you wouldn't mind leaving a like, I would appreciate it and it would help out the series. Leave your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell for notifications so you know when Season 5 kicks off. And I will see you all then.